Hello again, day number 2 on our project Torah in 5 minutes or less. I just wanted to thank those of you who commented on yesterday's video upload. Those of you who commented on Facebook or sent a message to me personally, it's always appreciated and your feedback is always taken into account. And it's lovely and wonderful always to hear from alumni. The series is being sponsored and dedicated in the merit of the Refuah Shlema of Reuven Tzvi Hirsch ben Dina betoch Shar Cholei Yisrael. Okay, here we go. I thought it would be a good idea to sort of continue the theme that we started to speak about yesterday, which was how does one gain that ability to become, quote unquote, a davener, someone who prays. And we talked about yesterday the fact of the difference of how Shari Dima have to come before Shari Tefillah. The gates of tears are open before. Those are the keys that open the Shari Tefillah. So how do we become those people that have that status of someone who davens and who's able to connect? I thought the appropriate way to approach this and the best way to look at it is, one way it would be to look at the first person who is credited, who's given the credit as establishing tefillah as a concretized concept in our lives. And the Gemara in Brachot Kav Vav Amud Bet says as follows: Avram tikin tefillat shacharit shene'amar v'yishkem Avram b'boker el hamakom asher amad sham. That Avram established tefillat shacharit, and as it says that Avram woke up in the morning and he went to that place where he had prayed. And that is the story of what happens post the destruction of Sdom, where Avram wakes up after the destruction of Sdom and goes to pray to God. And we know this Gemara, it's not a new concept for us, that Avram was the one who established it, the concept of davening, the concept of shacharis. But I want to just mention the source that the Gemara chooses to use. The source that the Gemara chooses is a source that took place, obviously, but it's not the first time that we see Avram turning to God or praying in the Tanakh. In fact, we see this take place a little bit earlier in the same context of the story of the destruction of Sdom, where right after the Malachim depart from Avram, right after the messengers, the angels depart from Avram, and they tell him, that Sdom is going to be destroyed. Avram, the Torah tells us as follows in Bereshit Yudchet, Kaf Gimel, a parak earlier than our quoted Gemara. Vayigash Avraham v'yomer hafti spet tzadikim Moshe. Avram is so moved by the fact that God is going to destroy tzaddikim and Rishayim together, tzaddik v'rala, how could the Rishis be punished, that he literally goes to battle with God over this concept. And I'm not using that term "go to battle" Sdom. I'm using it because Rashi uses it. Rashi quotes the term Vayigash Avraham that the Torah uses, and he quotes the other places in Tanakh where Vayigash is used, and he says that tefillah, the word Vayigash is used for 3 types of tefillah. 1, ledaber kashot, 1 to wage battle, 2, lefiyus, to appease God, and 3, letefillah, and 3rd one is to pray to God for one's needs. And I think that those are the 3 sort of pillars of what tefillah should be. It should be something that we really feel like we're waging battle over. Something bothers us so much that we feel the only place we can turn to is God because we're so bothered by something that's happening in the world. Number 2, appeasement. Not only by things that bother us, but things that when God has been good to us and wonderful to us, and we want to thank God for the beauty and the blessings that we have in our life. And number 3, the one that's easiest for us to connect to is letefillah, that we pray to God personally. And those are the 3 pillars that sort of Rashi sets up for what tefillah should be. And I think that when we look at Avram's connection with God here, it sort of gives us a little bit of an understanding as how he became the quote-unquote the pioneer davener. Prayer for Avram, or prayer for us, what the Gemara quotes as prayer, is an external expression of a pre-existing relationship. Avram already had that relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He had that instinct to turn to God when something bothered him, when he wanted to thank God, or when he wanted to talk to God. And so therefore, he had an existing relationship, and then it became concretized in the concept of tefillah and the concept of prayer. And the Gemara only attributes the concept of prayer a little later on, once Avram has sort of established this relationship. And I think it's sort of encouraging us to take that step and to say, where do our instincts lead us? Is our gut to turn to God in these situations, or is our gut not to turn to God in these situations? And if it's not to turn to God in the situations, then how can we think that we're just going to get up with a siddur or with a machzor one day and just sort of, reach out to God and talk to him and to connect to him? So maybe the Gemara's use of a story that happens later is to sort of urge us to look what happens earlier and say, look, Avram was someone who turned to God naturally. So that's one thing I think that we can work on now, is the concept of turning to God naturally, allowing our instincts or training our instincts and our gut feelings to directly turn to God when we want and when we need something. But I think this concept of waging battle is also relevant because Avram is someone who, yes, when he davened for his own needs, but Avram is someone who prayed for the others. Avram is someone who davened when he saw the pain and the suffering of others, and when he couldn't stand to see the pain and the suffering of others. And I think that's also a message to us. The Yamim Norim are so often focused on what our individual needs and prayers are, but are we also focused on the needs of those around us? And once we focus on the needs of those around us and what's happening in the greater picture, then we can sort of zone in on the smaller picture of what we ourselves need. So that we should be able to continue these days and learn to continue to pray in a way of waging battle, in a way of appeasement, and a way of praying for our own needs.